Hello and welcome to youshallpass.com.
Hi, this is the second video in the LOSs 1 and 2 series. In the first video, we introduced the 6 rules of my way and showed their overlap and their congruence with the CFA Institute's standards of professional conduct. In this video, we're going to work through all the sample questions given in the curriculum readings and show how the 6 rules of my way work in practice. Throughout this video, we strongly suggest that you have a hard copy of the 6 rules of my way close at hand. There will be a 30-second interval within which you can read the question, after which we'll start discussing the question and the answer. Feel free to pause the video at any time if you think you need to recap the narration or to look at the question again. Good luck. Well, if Smith were the client, what would he like for himself and what wouldn't he like for himself? Would he like to not benefit from updated research and the revised investment recommendation? Unlikely. He would like the most up-to-date and correct analysis before deciding to buy or sell. Therefore, choice A appears to be unnecessarily cruel to the client. Choice B is where the client is advised of the revised investment recommendation and Smith then leaves the decision up to the client. Sounds fairly reasonable, and let's see if the next choice has anything more for us. In C, Smith usurps the client's fundamental right to do what he wants with his money. Smith refuses to accept the client's order if the order is contrary to Smith's research recommendation. That's clearly unreasonable and is in fact the other extreme of choice A. It's appropriate only if Smith were the overbearing father of the client and is intent on handing out some tough love. Therefore, with both A and C being clearly inappropriate and B sounding like a fairly reasonable course of action, we select choice B as the correct answer to this question. Specifically, this question talks about soft dollar commissions or soft dollar brokerage. The first choice, A, provides both the discretion and benefit of the use of brokerage commissions to the end client, and that is how it should be. This is a clear example of what we earlier mentioned as directed brokerage, where the client directs a manager to purchase specific goods or services for the client from the brokerage commissions paid. Therefore, choice A does not appear to be a violation of the code and standards of the CFA Institute. Choice B again represents the use of these brokerage commissions for the benefit of the client in the shape of execution and investment research services, which is again how it should be. And the value of those services is commensurate or of approximately equal value to the amount of brokerage commissions paid by the client, which is also how it should be. The client whose pocket the dollars are walking out from is benefiting directly in the shape of brokerage services and also indirectly in the shape of investment research that the broker performs for the fund manager. Therefore, choice B is okay too and doesn't appear to be a violation of the code and standards. Option C. Well, someone not benefiting out of something that he is paying for, and someone benefiting out of something that they haven't paid for. Sounds unreasonable and wrong, doesn't it? So choice C violates the rules of my way and is incidentally also the only one that violates the CFA Institute's code and standards also. We're going to go with C as our answer here, as the one that violates the code and standards. The CFA Institute Standard 3A, Loyalty, Prudence and Care, relates to situations like these. Well, this one appears to be fairly straightforward. Rule number 1 says that in cases of conflict of interest, disclosure is mandatory. The only option here which requires Jamison to disclose the special relationship of Harvard and Harvard with Britland is option C. Therefore, option C is the correct choice here. The question involves the firm's policy regarding the personal transactions of its employees. Choice A respects the circle of life and rule number 1, my way rule number 1, and also discloses the conflict beforehand, regardless of whether the employees succumb to the conflict or not. So, option A does not appear to be a violation of the requirements of rule number 1. Option B also respects the circle of life, whereby employees must seek permission from their employers before undertaking personal transactions. That also removes the possibility of employees front-running the client's orders or those of the employer. Therefore, choice B also appears to be a fairly reasonable option. Choice C violates the circle of life. It places the interests of employees above or at par with those of employers or clients. It probably discloses the conflict of interest, but to not do anything about it isn't enough. Therefore, the option that most clearly violates the requirements of my way and those of the CFA Institute's Code of Ethics and Standards of Professional Conduct is option C.
You took your first pinch like a man, and you learned the two greatest things in life.
What?
Look at me. Never rat on your friends, and always keep your mouth shut.
Man, I just can't seem to get enough of this guy and this dialogue of his. What Robert De Niro is saying is that Bronson needs permission from the trustees before disclosing anything to anyone for any reason. Option A seeks no permission. Option C seeks no permission, so both are wrong. The only option that requires Bronson to seek trustee permission is B. So we're going to go with that as our correct answer here. This question relates to standards 3A and 3E, loyalty, prudence and care, and preservation of confidentiality. So what comes to mind here? To my mind, the limerick, especially its last line. If grazing sheep fall off a cliff, it's the shepherd who's to blame. Or something like that. I mean, I might be taking artistic license with my own work here. The only options among the above where Miller retains responsibility for the actions of all her subordinates is option C. So we're going to select that as our correct answer here. Rule number 5, the one about being like Hansel and Gretel and leaving behind a trail of breadcrumbs, clearly operates here. The requirement is to have a solid, dependable, credible chain of analysis backing up an analyst's recommendations. To the extent that such a chain is absent, there is a violation of rule number 5. Choice C is clearly wrong, and so is choice A, since it determines a violation on the basis of failure to separate fact from fiction rather than on the lack of a reasonably well-documented and analytical basis for Villier's opinion. Choice B then seems the best representation of the situation, and we select that as our answer here. This question was about Standard 5A, diligence and reasonable basis. Assuming that the cell recommendation was arrived at objectively, independently, and after diligent research, both options A and C are wrong. Option A is totally arbitrary in nature and also unfair to clients who had acted on the cell recommendation. And it's also unfair to the industry and peers who may not know about the additional public offering. Option C, the assignment of another analyst, is to say that the firm could have done a better job at analyzing the ETV corporation stock in the first place, or that the new analyst may be pressurized into issuing a new recommendation. So, after the elimination of both A and C, we left with choice B here as our preferred answer to this question. The behavior laid out in choice B, that of only issuing factual information about the security and not providing any research opinion on that factual information, is just one of the ways this potential conflict of interest could have been avoided. However, in exam situations, if the correct answer is not, if it's not leaping out at you, then rather than splitting hairs and wasting time, it's far quicker, far better to eliminate the obviously wrong choice or choices and then arrive at the correct answer by the process of elimination. Well, there's no such qualification as the CFA Level 2. You are either a CFA Institute charter holder or you're not. So Albert has definitely violated rule number 6 and maybe also rule number 1 in the sense of misrepresentation and passing herself off as holding some qualification from the CF Institute while in fact she does not hold any such qualification. Now, the CFA Institute does not stop anyone from telling others that they are in fact candidates for the CFA Charter. And it doesn't also prevent them from giving out factual information such as the course content of the CFA Charter exams or how many exams they've passed. Since TIE's promotional materials do not include anything beyond the facts, TIE has not violated rule number 6. Therefore, the correct answer is choice A. This program was about Standard 7B, reference to the CFA Institute, the CFA designation, and the CFA program. Well, Scott did speak to the US representative from his area about the pending tax legislation, but that is not to say that anyone else interested in Walkden Industries talk couldn't also have arranged to meet with the congresswoman. Therefore, choice A appears to be okay, not a violation. Choice B is a clear violation of rule number 1. Since Scott's clients may feel hard done by as he tells them that the dividend will increase by $1.50 per share. The dividend may increase, or it may not increase, or may increase by only a little and not by $1.50 per share. Scott sounds really sure of himself and also of really sure of the dividend increase in his research recommendation, whereas the fact of the matter is that the matter was still very fluid and he should have acted and written while being a lot more circumspect. The dividend may have risen by $1.50 and the stock price may have risen by $8, or none of this may have happened due to a million different reasons, and Scott should have explicitly demarcated opinion and fact in his report. Therefore, option B seems like a violation, and we'll keep it in mind while we go over option C next. Well, option C predicates a violation explicitly on the basis that Scott relied on uncertain predictions of future government action. However, the analyst who does not anticipate and does not look forward is not really doing his job and really doing a disservice to his clients. It is permissible, maybe even encouraged, to look forward and anticipate and analyze upcoming events. But then the analyst needs to tell her clients that all that may happen and should certainly not base a prediction of stock prices on such uncertain future events. Therefore, Scott appeared to be within his rights to incorporate potential legislative developments in his analysis, so C also appears to be okay. Where Scott went wrong, what Scott's mistake was in failing to tell his clients that the dividends may increase by $1.50 and also in failing to tell them why he was saying that. Therefore, the correct answer in this case still appears to be option B. Rule number 1, deal fairly with people. That means that all clients deserve the same chance of benefiting from the new investment recommendation. The only option that ties in most closely with this requirement is option C. So we're going to select that as our answer here. Option A allows an unfair advantage to the employees of the brokerage house over their clients and also over the investing public in general. And option B provides the same unfair advantage to the institutional clients of the brokerage house. Both cases of providing a select group of people with an unfair advantage over everyone else are unwarranted and unethical. This question was about standard 3B, fair dealing. We spoke about the mosaic theory when we introduced the applicability of rule number 1 to standard 2A. And in that discussion, it was explicitly stated that incorporating material public information and non-material non-public information was fine and acceptable and not at all a violation of my way or the CFA Institute's way. Option B states this, and it does so in so many words. So thankfully, this is one of those cases where the correct answer just jumps out at us. Option B above is also a violation, but not of the mosaic theory. And option C does not exclude the use of material non-public information, which is a violation of rule number 1. So after eliminating both of these, we again arrive at option B as our correct choice in this question. Whenever conflicted, disclose. The only option that requires disclosure is option C. So this was easy. Remember, CFA Institute Standards of Professional Conduct and the Code of Ethics, or for that matter the Rules of My Way, do not necessarily prohibit additional compensation of fund managers by clients. They just require that such arrangements be disclosed and approved by the employers of the fund manager. This question relates to standard 4B, additional compensation arrangements. Okay, there are two issues whose compliance with the standards needs to be tested here. The first is whether the Jones Corp shares were voted correctly, and the second one was whether it's right to direct all the brokerage to one particular brokerage house. The first issue, the one whether Farnsworth did the right thing by voting for the management nominated directors at Jones Corp, right or wrong, rests solely on whether Farnsworth acted responsibly towards those to whom he owed that responsibility. In this case, since Farnsworth was the fund manager for the Jones Corp employee profit sharing plan, he owed his duties of responsibility and loyalty and care to the ultimate beneficiaries of the profit sharing plan, which is the employees of Jones Corp. So, to the extent that Farnsworth did a diligent job at researching both the panels of directors and then reached his decision to vote for the management nominated slate on merit, it cannot be said that he violated Standard 3A, because as per Farnsworth research, the management nominated directors are better for the long run performance of Jones Corp and also hence better for the shareholders of Jones Corp. As for the issue of the use of client brokerage commissions, here, even though the research provided by the brokerage house was not of direct or explicit benefit to the Jones Corp employees profit sharing plan, the plan participants and the plan, they were not any worse off either if if all the brokerage from their investment activities was passed on to one brokerage house. Had that been the case, the story would have been different. But here, even though the research services were not of any particular use for them, they were not any worse off either, because all their brokerage went to one house. Since the question explicitly states that the brokerage house in question provides the best execution and best commission rates, there's no reason to go anywhere else. Even if, say, the research services provided by the brokerage house were of no real use to the employees' profit sharing plan. So, we conclude that there's no real violation of Standard 3A here either. Out of all the options A, B, and C, the only one which absolves Farnsworth of any violation or wrongdoing in both these instances is option B. So that's the one that we're going to select here as our answer. Rule number 1, don't treat people any differently than you would like to be treated yourself. What Brown's done here, it's like telling Green, look, there's a man, marry him. What if Green's already married or engaged or not looking for a relationship, or what if she just marches to the beat of a different drummer altogether, So I doubt that sort of advice is appreciated or required. So Brown's principal sin here is to be oblivious to her client's needs, objectives, investment horizon, and requirements. The correct answer, the straightforward choice, option A. This question was about Standard 3C, suitability. Well, you can probably tell by now that this is one of those fact or fiction questions, the type of which we met a little while earlier as well. And honestly speaking, in this era of the fiscal cliff and budget ceilings and sovereign downgrades, my real response isn't even listed here, that both Statement 1 and Statement 2 are opinion rather than fact. However, let's just assume that these are pre-fiscal cliff era days and acknowledge that yes, even now, when push does come to shove and when capital needs really safe haven, the flight to safety is, yes, best taken aboard Air Force One. Okay, so the idea here is that investors should be guided as appropriately and correctly as possible at all times. and that includes being told what may occur and what will occur. Subtle, but well, actually not so subtle, and very significant distinction. So here, what will occur is that the United States government will come good on its promise and will redeem the treasury bonds at full face value and maturity, and also pay all coupons in between. But the promise of the 10% rate of return every year, year on year, that is just one of many, many possible outcomes. Bond prices change every day depending on market conditions and interest rate scenarios and outlooks. So there is no way that Gray should be guaranteeing year-on-year results for bond prices or bond portfolios, and Gray should have been a lot more circumspect while giving her opinion on the sort of returns that investors can hope to achieve from this portfolio. She should have made statements like investors may earn, or in our opinion, a return of such and such percent per annum is likely, or a total return of X percent over Y years may be possible, and should have hedged her bet, and also shouldn't have led her clients into thinking that the 10% return every year, year on year until maturity is a given. So with statement 1 being fact and statement 2 being an opinion, and a rather weak one and poor one, let's select choice C as our correct answer here. This question was regarding standard 1C, misrepresentation. Well, it's a long question, and thankfully the answer is a fairly obvious one. But just in case the answer hasn't jumped out at you, let's examine all the given choices one by one. The first one, where Anderb fails to disclose her personal transactions to her employer, is a definite violation of the circle of life. Anderb has failed to honor the circle of life here. So yes, let's flag that as a violation. Anderb owning the same securities as those of her clients is not of itself not necessarily a violation, in the sense that if she likes a particular security or a bunch of securities for her clients, it's only natural to assume that she may like them for her personal portfolio. Owning them of itself does not make it a violation. How she got there, what prices she used, that can be, maybe, but that is not specified here. Bates allowing Anderb to use the same broker for her personal trades, again, is not of itself a violation. There are nuances to it, and as we have seen, that the broker gave preferential prices to Anderb for her security transactions. However, using the broker in and of itself is not a transaction, is not a violation. What transpired in those transactions is another story. But the given choice does not offer any such nuances. Since there is a bit of gray in choices B and C, and since the question asks for the most likely violation, then the most likely violation we have here is choice A. So we're going to go with that as our answer here. This question involved CFA Institute Standard 1D, misconduct, Standard 3A, loyalty, prudence and care, Standard 4C, responsibility of supervisors, and Standard 6B, priority of transactions. So, has the correct answer jumped out at you yet? Well, as you know, the limerick in rule number 4 states that the law applies to you even if you don't know about it. So, if you're fulfilling one set of laws, blissfully unaware that a more stringent set of laws still applies to you, well, you're in trouble, brother. You're in trouble with the limerick. Here, options B and C are easy eliminations, and choice A is both the obviously correct answer as well as the only option left after the elimination of choices B and C. This question involved standard 1A, knowledge of the law. Well, as per the circle of life and the obligations of rule number 1, Ward's primary responsibility is to his clients and obviously his employer, and the best course of action is the one where he can write the report with complete facts and with complete objectivity, and a report where he's not beholden to any secondary influences which may conflict with his primary responsibility. The only option here that allows for complete independence and does not behold Ward to anyone is option B, the one where Ward pays for all expenses himself, or at least doesn't stick Evans with the bill. All other cases are compromises. Thus, they may be acceptable but aren't necessarily the best option. In one case, he hurts the feelings of Ward Industries by accepting their hospitality, but still bringing out the less than rosy aspects of Ward. And in the other case, he's just disclosing the conflict of interest in his nature, which is acceptable, but it isn't still the best treatment for the clients of, for his clients, or for the end users of his research report. So we're going to go with B as our choice of answer here. This question regarded standard 1B, independence and objectivity. Examining this option by option, it appears that both choices A and C are unnecessarily harsh and restrictive. Choice A prohibits members and candidates from undertaking private practice at all, whereas private practice or extra-official endeavors are not prohibited by any of the rules of my way, but what is required is disclosure and consent from the employer in cases where the activity, the private practice, is in direct competition with the employer. But A seems to lay down a blanket prohibition on all private practice, and that is not in keeping with the rules of my way. So that's an elimination. Choice C prohibits members from even making arrangements or preparations to go into private practice. Again, if a member or a candidate were to print out office stationery, or were to design marketing materials or brochures, or were to rent official premises, etc., there is not a prohibition or a bar anywhere on this in the rules of my way. The employer ranks higher up the hierarchy in the circle of life, yes. their legitimate business interests come first? Yes. And as long as those legitimate business interests are not being compromised by, say, if the employee were to go around distributing their marketing materials, especially to clients of the employer, clients that the employee was currently working on, that is hurting the legitimate interests of the employee or of the employer, and that is wrong. But preliminary preparation, such as designing of marketing materials or office stationery or renting premises or equipment, etc., that is fine. Once we eliminate A and C, what we're left with is B. So that will be a choice here, both by default and also because the choice laid out in B is one that is completely in keeping with the spirit of rule number 1, that is disclosure. And since the activity is in competition with the employer, the consent from the employer. This question was about standard 4A, loyalty. Alright, this has been going on for close to 45 minutes now. I don't know about you guys, I am beat. When we restart, we'll start with the third and last video in this series where we finish all the questions and round it all off with some final bits of advice. Until then, take care and see you.